Good to see everyone.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
How are you, Cedric?
I think we are waiting for a quorum, right?
Could be.
I just got a text from Hennessy. She said her Zoom is frozen. Please let everyone know, and she's going to try to rejoin as soon as possible. So I think she's going to get us up and running, but I think her Zoom is acting up.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Yep. I think we still need quorum either way, though.
Yeah.
If she's over in the main City Hall building, they have tons of connectivity issues over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe this should be discussed at the Landmarks Commission hearing on Tuesday when they're voting to make it a landmark.
Bob, it may be architecturally significant, but boy, it is not my favorite building or architectural style, that's for sure.
It really is. Yeah. I did have an architect explaining to me once what a great building it was, but if you have to explain it, it's
It'll be really interesting to see the comments on it coming in at the hearing after.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I am on both my computer and is there an echo?
We can hear you.
Okay, 1 second.
It is echoing though.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'll try to leave this meeting and hopefully this works. So we're all set. We do have a quorum. I think we're fine in that way. It's just, I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. I'm scared to start my camera. But I'll send the agenda if I'm not frozen. So that we can get started.
Hennessy, I'm going to post the agenda in the chat and hope you're not frozen. That may be a sign.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, Joe, thank you for posting that. That's exactly what I was going to do, but I don't know what's going on with my computer. So I appreciate that. All right, so we have some exciting things to get through. first things first, we have to just approve the meeting minutes. I don't know if you guys got a chance to take a look at it. It was very short. I just, used the notes that Joe and Lauren took for last meetings minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Amazing. Thank you guys. And then I think if Dory's here, she can give a check-in. I think we were talking last time about BPL and the archives forum. So if you guys have an update on that, let us know. But if not, that's okay.
I have, thank you. I have no update since our last meeting. But we'll check in with you all in the new year.
Okay. And then this mapping project check-in, it's 5th, but I'll put it 4th because it's just a quick update. So I met with the Leventhal Map Center to talk about this the mapping project of mapping BPS and historic houses and sites and museums. And they really like the idea. They are willing to move forward to help us with this project. They sent me a sheet that they would like me to fill out for these houses. So it's like, it has the name of the house, an address, longitude, latitude, a brief description, and a link to an image, and it'll appear when the map is complete. It'll appear as a little pin. You click on that pin, and it'll show you a picture of the place. It'll show you all of that information I just said. And the map will have a search feature, so you can search your school and then see the surrounding places. So that's something that we could potentially, if we have a little time, we can walk through that today. But it'll be pretty exciting. So if we can't get through it today, I'll send it out so that we can start populating that spreadsheet. But so that MHS's education team so kindly volunteered to come and speak to you guys and speak to us about their processes and what they do. And so I don't want to take any more of your time. I want you guys to take it away, and we'll ask some questions once they're done presenting.
Thanks, Hennessy. Let me introduce my colleagues from the Massachusetts Historical Society's education team real quick. We have Kate Melchior, who is the Associate Director for Educator Engagement and Outreach, as well as Paula Sampson, who is our Teaching and Learning Specialist and a retired teacher herself. And we've asked them here because we have some questions about designing curricula. And since we've not had any input from folks at BPS, since our team does work with many school districts, including BPS, I think, and then they've developed curricula, I thought they could talk to us a little bit about what they do, and we should have questions for them as to what we've discussed here in this subcommittee. So over to you, Kate.
It's so nice to meet all of you, and thank you for the introduction, Candice. Before we dive in, so Paula and I love to talk about education. We love to talk about education on the Revolutionary era. So we could probably talk your ears off for as long as you wanted to give us. And before we dive too far in, I'm just wondering, are there any particular questions or topics that you really want to make sure that we touch on in our initial presentation? And if not, we'll just give a basic overview and can dive into questions afterwards. All right, sounds like doing kind of an initial overview that might help spark some of the questions. So I have been at the Massachusetts Historical Society for about 7.5 years. And in that time, our team has grown from 1 person to now 6. We wear many hats at the MHS. So what I'm going to try and do is keep this somewhat brief, but give a little bit of a taste of the different ways that we engage with students and teachers, and particularly kind of keeping in mind that all of this is related to many of the eras and the histories that you all are covering in the work that you're doing here too. So just some background in our department, we have kind of a number of buckets and a number of different primary ways that we engage with students and teachers. So One of the biggest ones, which Paul is going to talk a little bit more about in a couple of minutes, is the National History in Massachusetts program. We do class visits with students. We have teacher and student fellowships where they come and do research in our collections. We do a lot of teacher workshops, which is professional development for teachers who are looking to increase their knowledge and also gain credit towards advancing in their careers. And then we have all sorts of different resources that we're creating using the materials in our collections. And the primary way that we have been doing that these days is through the History Source portal. So actually, I'm wondering, do I have the ability to share? I think I can share my screen, yes. So I thought, especially since you're talking about curriculum, that I might just give a quick show of what this looks like. So the web address is historysource.org. It looks a little different when I drop the link in here, but if you all go there, you can explore a bit of what we have. And I'm going to share my screen and show it off a little bit. So the History Source is the brainchild that has come out of many years of working with teachers who have been doing fellowships in our collections, pulling out these incredible resources. And we used to sort of just post some basic lessons online. But what we really figured out in the last 6 or 7 years is that what teachers really want is flexibility to be able to adapt these to exactly what their own students need. So we set out to try and design a curriculum portal that had maximum flexibility where a teacher who's teaching 3rd grade or a teacher that's teaching 11th grade could use the same rich primary sources from our collections, but be able to adapt them and create supportive materials that would work for their students in particular. So since we're talking about the revolution, we have about 16 sets right now and are working on building more. This has been up for probably about 2 years at this point, 2.5 years. And with the anniversaries coming up, there's been a lot of interest in materials around the Revolutionary era, but we are also working on a number of different other sources. So for example, we just launched a source pretty recently on the trade between Boston and China between 1790 and 1850. Now, each of these sources you look through here and you're able to filter by what you're looking for. You can look at the theme that we're talking about. You can browse by time period, and you can also browse by the grade spans that we have specific materials designed for. So just to jump into one of them, when we look at something like investigating multiple perspectives on the Boston Massacre, we partner with scholars and with teachers, both in sort of elementary and middle or high, and we put everyone in conversation together to essentially select between 5 and 8 or 9 sources that give kind of diversity of perspectives and a kind of wider picture of the time period they're looking at, something that's really unique, and then also to design materials that go around that so you can be used in the classroom. So in this one, for example, you can see that we've got all sorts of materials that are exploring different perspectives and also the ways that the biases that we bring to the table can shape how people interpreted the Boston Massacre at the time and how we interpret it now. As you go through, you'll see there's very short pieces of information about each one of them. We've got very brief texts that people can use. We also have access to longer texts so that students and teachers can figure out, do we need a simplified version? Do I need a sentence or two, or do I need the whole thing? We have vocabulary and kind of basic analysis questions. And we have a wide variety of types of sources here too. So sometimes if you're looking for something that's an artifact or something that's really visual, you can pull that in where other students might be working more with texts. When you go on to the teachers page, you see that we have historical context. This is written by our scholar, and our scholar also advises the teachers who develop close reading questions and suggested activities. So the idea is you could take a single source out of this and insert it into what you're already doing in the classroom. You can take, say, one item, this engraving, and you've got some reading questions you can play with, but you can also go into the suggested activities and pull an activity wholesale. So for example, we have in this one, a handout, Google Slides, and it's comparing propaganda in colonial Boston. So here we have the short narrative of the horrid massacre in Boston, as opposed to the fair account of the late unhappy disturbance in Boston. And so with older students, you can dive further into the text of both of these, but even with younger students, you can look at the title. What are the words that stand out to them? We have simplified language, we have the primary language, and always access back to the originals. So this is just sort of a taste of the kinds of things you might find here. You also have applicable standards. And then if you go into our additional resources, this is where we link to other things that the MHS has, but also places that outside of the MHS that we can point them towards and recommend. And here you'll see we even have some video materials that are available. So let me just take a quick look at my outline. I think that's, oh, that was the other thing. In addition to these sort of specific materials that we have on an era or on a subject, we also have broader teacher resources that they can use anywhere here or with other materials. So for example, we have some guidance on how to craft historical questions for any age group. And we have resources you can use in order to mine any source that you're looking at and pull information out from it. So basically, this is just hopefully a taste, but a sense of the way that we approach using these kind of materials with students and making them available in the classroom, but also how we use them when they come to visit us. And I should mention probably the most key thing about all the resources you're finding here is that anything we have that's a worksheet or a downloadable thing is editable in Google, because teachers do not need PDFs that they can't change. They always have something they're going to change, whether they're adding their own vocabulary, they're simplifying it, they're inserting into something else they're using elsewhere. So everything we use, we want to make sure it's as flexible as possible so that they can use their own expertise and make it available for the students in the way they need it. Any questions? And Paula, did I miss anything critical?
No, I don't think you did, Kate.
All right, well, we'll have plenty more time for questions later, but hopefully this just gives an idea of how we use some of the resources we have and how we try and get them out into the world. And for now, I will turn this over, I believe, to Paula, who can talk a little bit. Oh, there was one other thing I was going to mention. I knew I'd forgotten something. Since we're talking about the Revolutionary, I just wanted to mention that we do have a workshop coming up this summer that's going to be on the battles of Lexington and Concord and the Siege of Boston. So that's in progress. And then we also have a source set in the works on JQA, John Quincy Adams, I suppose, for people who don't work at the MHS and look at his diaries all the time. So we've got some things in the pipe, and then there's more coming, which we'll also talk about at the end of this. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about NHD, which is one of the other really large buckets that we have, and which is particularly timely working with themes around revolution this year as well. So Paula, all yours.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you all for having us. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk about the work that we do. I have been the teaching and learning specialist at Mass Historical Society for a little over a year now. And before that, I'm a 35-year veteran of the public school, teaching social studies at all grade levels and working as department head. So I think I have a pretty good sense of what teachers look for in curriculum and kind of what are some things that might be important to think about. And I think those are all reflected in the work that we're doing at MHS. I'll just go back to the history source just for 1 second to let you know that in the past year, 23,000 people have used our materials from the history source. Those are analytics that are very new to us. And I am, as a person who spent my whole life doing this, I am blown away by that number. And what that says to me is that the draw of the materials that we are creating, both for the history source and for National History Day, which I'll talk about in just a moment, are really designed to be user-friendly to teachers, and not most social studies teachers and history teachers and people who are going to use primary sources in their classroom, they don't have pre-packaged curriculum. They don't have a book and a series and benchmark assessments the way that you might have in ELA and in math and even in science now. So they're largely pulling resources and creating a package that works for their students. So it's just, I'm so happy that we're able to be helpful to them in that way. And I think knowing kind of who some of those teachers are is going to be a next exciting phase for us. But my primary job at MHS is to work with teachers, supporting teachers in schools around the National History Day project. Are you familiar, those of you who are on screen, nod yes or no. Are you familiar with National History Day? Okay, I got a big smile out of somebody. Okay, that's great. So, and I love the thumbs up. Thank you. For those of you who aren't, just very quickly, think science fair, but for history. The national office will set a national theme. This year, it's rights and responsibilities in history. You can feel the build up to the 250th in the work that they are doing at the national level. Students take that theme, do deep primary source research, construct a historical argument, and then they present their work either as a documentary, a website, a paper, an exhibit, or a live performance. So lots of variation there. What we're doing on the ed team is building out some universally designed materials. And if you're not familiar with universal design in learning, it really is to create materials and processes that are accessible to all students the way they come. So it's not like you have to take a difficult text and scale it back or scale it down. You simply include the supports to the text. Might be a read aloud, it might be a simplified version, it might be an audio version that comes from somewhere else. It might be a vocabulary wall. It might be some background essays. It might be some illustrations. You create that, and that then they're sort of accessible to all students without a teacher having to sort of decide, well, you need this and you need that. And so I will kind of parcel out the scaffolds that you need. It's a little bit more open and puts the job of learning right back in the hands of the students that are doing it. And so the theme for next year, how timely, is revolution, reaction, and reform in history. MHS is the state sponsor, this affiliate sponsor for National History Day in Massachusetts. So we will be encouraging our students, and I don't think they'll need much encouragement actually, to produce a lot of projects that are related to the 250th and that focus really on some of our local history. And in order to do that, in addition to the materials that we're creating, we are partnering with a number of organizations to do sort of landing pages for us. So when a student goes off to do research, we can direct them to various institutions. For example, the Davis Center at Harvard for Russian and Eurasian Studies is built a great landing page for us, where if a student is interested in a topic around that area or that history, they can go there. There are people they can contact. There is a way for them into the archives at Harvard. It really sort of is opening up some of our institutions, even to some of our younger students. These students are 6th to 12th grade. So we will have some 11-year-olds working with the Davis Center. I guarantee it. You get that quirky kid that's really interested, right, in that kind of a topic, and then you pair them with that adult, and that's where real magic happens, I think. And certainly has for us. That has borne itself out in National History Day. Just a couple of other partners, the Policy School at Northeastern, and they have sponsored prizes for us, the Charles River Museum of Innovation and Industry over in Waltham, the Athenaeum, the Leventhal Map Center, heard referenced earlier today. And so we're just really so excited to be able to increase the number of schools that we're working with, and we're seeing that happen kind of exponentially. Particularly trying to gain a foothold in the Boston Public Schools, as we know, it can be kind of a tricky ask. And so we know that we'll have 3 of them this year, hopefully an additional number next year. And that's sort of where we are. So I'm going to throw it back to Kate, unless there are questions for me, who will then talk about maybe some of our other initiatives.
Thank you, Paula. And we did touch on this briefly, but I want to mention one of the joys of the National History Day project is that students get to pick whatever history it is that they are passionate about. So we're talking about the framework of the 250th. We're making a lot of resources available around the 250th, but students will pick any. I have seen projects on the Battle of Lexington and Concord. I have seen projects on the history of anime. I have seen projects where students are diving into their own personal history. And I think one of the things that we're really trying to do, particularly for National History Day and also for the resources we're developing on the Revolutionary Era and beyond, is to make sure that students who are interested in queer history, students who are interested in women's history, students who are interested in, Black Bostonians in the Revolution, that there's materials available so that they can dive in and pull those themes out, because the hunger is there from the students and we see it at those contests. So the more that we can produce and the more that we can also provide links to other people who also have those resources, the better. And that leads me inadvertently perfectly into the last note for this group. So we've talked a lot about what the MHS is doing, but the 250th is looming large for all of our organizations and has led to some really wonderful partnerships and curriculum development, both around the state and also across the country. So I wanted to mention one partnership in particular that we're very proud to be a part of. sponsored, it's kind of being housed in the William and Mary University and also with Colonial Williamsburg. They basically own the domain history.org. And a couple years ago, they were like, look, no one is doing a concerted effort to do this national education campaign. So what if we start it? And the idea is almost what we're doing with the history source. In fact, we were used as one of the models they looked at initially, but writ across the country. What does it look like to take high quality vetted primary sources from museums, historical societies, archives, institutions across the country, and put them in easy to access primary source sets with materials that are designed and interventions across all grade levels? So we currently have about 29 sources in their first, 10 sets that are going beta pretty soon, but they're alongside things from the Museum of the American Revolution and from Mount Vernon and from some other smaller institutions. And we're part of like a core of maybe 20 organizations that have started, but now they're at the point where they're going to be starting to invite the next wave of experts in. And part of this is also to leverage the community trust that seems to be there for institutions like ours and is being kind of undermined in teachers themselves. So we're also able to provide things, the kind of studies are showing that museums are really trusted when it comes to learning history, institutions like a lot of the places that we work. So how can we put those things into the hands of teachers? So not only do they have great tools, but they also have backup to be able to use these things in their education spaces. So the beta version of history.org is about to go live on December 15th with the first 6 sets. They also are working on 500 educational videos that can be used in classes. And it's going to be a closed launch for the next 6 months. It's starting with sort of internal groups, but fairly quickly in March, they're going to be throwing this out to teachers who would like to beta it and a wider audience. So this is moving very quickly, but the plan is that there's going to be quite a bit available by the fall of 2025 for teachers to start using in their classrooms. So I think I have hit all of the bullet points Paula and I had been planning to talk about. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us, and I'd love to open this up to any questions or ideas that you all are working on with your team that we might be able to kind of offer some insight with. But thank you all. Joe, I see your hand.
Yeah, so this is incredible, an amazing amount of work, and you guys are amazing presenters too. I wanted to just remind kind of everybody in the subcommittee from the legislation. One of our tasks is to incorporate history and commemorative activities into Boston Public School curriculum. So just kind of want to make sure that like we covered that real quick. But my question, you all are education specialists. Most of us are not. But with that kind of directive of incorporating commemorative activities in history into curricula, do you think that we are? What do you recommend is the most effective means? Because you've covered a lot of different kind of possibilities. Is it developing teachers, developing curricula, or is it developing a way to amplify existing curricula? What's the most effective option there?
That is a fantastic question. Paula, do you want to take a first stab at that one?
I think that the the work of developing curricula is very, very technical. Much more so, especially for a K-12 audience, much more so than it maybe was even 15 or 20 years ago. It's a long process. And maybe it is that there's enough that is already in existence that it's amplifying that curriculum or those curricular opportunities that really might be helpful. I think that is I'm on the DESE History and Social Science leadership team, and we met yesterday. And one of the problems that they were talking about with the Mass Council for the Social Studies, which is the professional organization of social studies teachers, is that there are all these wonderful initiatives and there's no clearinghouse that teachers go to first to try to find them. So teachers find us and then they find other things through us. And we're, I think, starting to fill that space a little bit. And I hope that we can do some more. But I think anything that you can do to put curricula in the hands of teachers and focus energy there might make some sense. Might be really useful too. That not only would fill a mandate, but a void.
And related to that, on the clearinghouse front, with folks like the Davis Center landing page and the Charles River Museum, how does your organization online form that kind of direct people to those landing pages? Because I'm just thinking, we've been talking a little bit about that concept, and I'm just wondering if we are looking to MHS as kind of the source of some excellent curricula and excellent design to help teachers to teach the teachers how to teach kids, or to teach the teachers and let the teachers teach the kids. If I feel like we could really benefit from pointing towards your organization, but how does that then go to other organizations as well?
So at first I thought you were asking how we build those partnerships, and my answer was going to be, and I'm going to share it just because it really encapsulates kind of who we are. We are relentless. We're relentless when we meet people. We know somebody comes from an organization. Once we have you, we are almost annoying to the point of developing resources with you. And that's been so successful, I think, for us. In terms of getting those organizations out to people, so we have a newsletter that goes out fairly regularly to a lot of people, and our open rate is pretty high. And so it goes there. It goes specifically in teacher emails to our National History Day schools. As we increase the number of National History Day schools, it will go to them. And then we're developing kind of this sort of informal, and I think maybe formal at some point, network of teacher leaders that are really have partnered with us on a number of things, and they tend to be people that other people look to as well. So headed in that direction as well. And obviously they're on our website.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I just wanted to mention there's some really great comments, I think, in the chat as well, if people are keeping an eye on that, especially Tatiana, that you've done some consulting with Facing History and Ourselves, which is also an incredible resource for curricular materials and for PE, primary source as well. And in fact, we didn't even mention this, but Primary Source has been one of the organizations that's been helping to spearhead the development of a new elementary social studies curriculum, which has been launching in the last couple of years, called Investigating History. That might be another relationship to build, is talking with the folks who are involved in that curriculum, because quite a bit of it, as you imagine, we cover the Revolutionary era several times during our curriculum, and there's been a lot of work put in there, but it's also at a launch point. So it might be a great time to kind of touch base with them and see where those holes are. I also wonder, I think there's been some great points here, and I know that you were saying it's been sort of tough to get BPS teachers in this space, which also is so understandable, right? There's so many demands on time and so many places reaching out. I'm wondering if there'd been any response from any of the program directors who do at that level, who are doing social studies at BPS, maybe not individual teachers, but the folks who are responsible for that curriculum across the whole district.
I don't think there's been an ask or an offer from us on that front yet. I think one of the assumptions that certainly I've made, I don't want to speak for everybody, is since BPS is technically on this subcommittee and this commission, I think we were expecting to have more direct involvement and a little bit less having to reach out, and more just they were here. And so I think we were waiting, I think, longer than maybe we should have, but certainly we can be more proactive in that. Related to that, one of my questions was, can you help us understand the challenges at the individual teacher and at the kind of, I don't remember the term that you just used, that shows how little I know about this topic, but the kind of higher up group organizers or whatever they're called, what kind of challenges those folks are facing that we can be aware of, so that we either don't ineffectively reach out or make it harder for them to do what they need to do.
Paula, I'm going to punt this to you in a sec, but I wanted to mention one quick thing with that regard. For what it's worth, we mentioned that we're starting to see History Day work into these schools. This has been a long process of starting to build these relationships ourselves. And so again, right, like it's taken a lot of time and relationship building, which I'm sure all of you can relate to very strongly. And so, we can talk a bit about that. But one of the things that just springs to mind is one of the previous coordinators who was in that role and basically was helping to provide resources and support social studies teachers across schools within BPS. And she had created this marvelous, landing page and a newsletter which sent out resources from partner institutions around Boston. I'm not sure something like that exists anymore, but it used to be that I would send Natasha hey, we've got this teacher workshop coming up. Can you promote it here? And I think the systems have changed a bit. The department changed a lot during COVID. But yeah, Paula, I'm going to turn this over to you, but there's I'm thinking in the back of my head whether asking if something like that might be useful that they didn't have to create themselves. Anyways, I'll chew on that a little bit. Paula, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. Joe, I just want to make sure I'm clarifying your question. You're asking about the challenges that the department heads and curriculum supervisors are facing in getting materials to teachers or in supporting teachers. I just want to make sure I heard your question.
I guess at the level of outside organizations connecting and making connections. I don't know if we need to do that ourselves and reinvent the wheel because you all have done so much of that, but also just to better understand if we are actually, should we even try, because these things need to rely on established, do these kinds of things need to rely on established relationships and not starting from scratch.
And just checking, do we have anyone from BPS who's in this room too? Because they will be able to speak much better to this than either of us ever will.
I'm here.
Yay. Hi, Angela. Thank you so much. All right, so could we turn this over to you if you don't mind?
Sure. So I'm, hi everyone. I'm Dr. Angela Headley Mitchell, Executive Director of Humanities for Boston Public Schools. I oversee the ELA and History departments. This is my 25th year in the Boston Public Schools and my second year as the ED of the department. I have a fantastic department of 5 program directors who are now broken down by grade bands from K to 12. I know that Dr. John Gould has been working with Paula at the Mass Historical Society to kind of bring our resources to the department. We work with a number of the partners that you all speak of. Leventhal, we are piloting investigating history. We work with primary source for a number of years. Social studies has been in a difficult predicament in the sense that, I don't want to say forgotten topic, but not necessarily focused on over time, which has been very challenging for us. And we've been able to have a renewed focus on the social studies and history content across all grade levels. So what we've been doing as a department is working with various organizations and building actually a catalog of resources for our teachers to make it an easier grab for them, so they don't have to go to multiple sources, but looking at our scope and sequence and where all your various resources fit in based on grade level, and then taking those resources and thinking about our multilingual learners, our students with individualized education plans to make sure all the materials are accessible to our students. So building up a department, I worked with Natasha Scott for many years. We then became a department of 1. So trying to, now that we have a full-fledged department again, how we continually to build those relationships and build new relationships and giving those resources to our teachers. So yeah, we're doing a lot. I'm sorry, I'm driving, but I'll share our website and how we're trying to really bring, with National History Day, John is really big part of that. We've been thinking about the commemoration. I don't have a curriculum writing team, but what we do is curate all resources that you all put together and bring them together for our teachers, which has been really and we do have what we call high quality instructional materials that we're working with our teachers to make sure our students get high quality grade level instruction materials in front of them. At the high school level, that's starting to be built out a little differently because we do have DBQ and I'm saying SHEG, but it's not SHEG anymore. Primary source, different facing history in ourselves. So we're trying to build together all these rich resources for our teachers so our students have these experiences that are multicultural, culturally affirming, and that represent a wide range of the stories that we want to make sure we put in front of our students.
Can I talk? Sorry. Hi. Thanks, Angela, for that. Since you're driving, I don't know if you can see the whole chat, but I think the question is like what can this commission do, if anything, to support your work in BPS? Because I think we're all coming at this like not really sure what our charge is. And if you're already doing all this work, I mean, it sounds like you need resources and support and stuff, but I mean, I don't know, maybe Joe, I don't know, whoever can give us clarification, but if they're doing a lot of this work, what are we charged to do? Or what can we do?
I think like this is a great body. I would love to expand this to my whole team. Like I said, I work with 2 departments, but I think that we're building, but we also rely on the support of organizations like your own to like help us bring the resources to students. And we're not aware of like every single thing. So I think that we're looking for the commission to help us how we help celebrate these, milestones, but how we make sure that what grade levels, and looking at our scope and sequence and seeing how these resources kind of build into the curriculum framework. So we have our organizations we've worked with for a long period of time, but like there's new information, new partnerships to develop, or actually bringing back partnerships that once were, and I know COVID knocked us out pretty bad in regards to our communication with a lot of our organizations. But I think the commemoration committee could be very helpful in the department bringing those resources to students. And we have a very robust bringing back our place-based learning initiative, and where we get our students out into the communities and seeing history right in front of them. So I think continuing meetings with the department would be really great to develop a plan of like how we bring all these organizations together and provide professional learning to our teachers to see how this can work in their classrooms.
I think my stuff is working now, fingers crossed. But based on the fact that we started, we started up a little after we were intended to. I think a lot of how the subcommittees have been thinking about what we can do is provide support and provide consolidation. And I think that's echoing Angela's point about helping build these partnerships and helping build programs in the best way we can, because the organizations in Boston that we want to get involved with are definitely already doing the work that needs to be done. And so our goal is to figure out how do we glue, how to help, how to support, how to boost things. And I think that that's part of a larger conversation about, that we're trying to have about the products and projects that we start and put out and use to support people. But I think, Joe, you're gonna speak.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of make an ask and a offer. I think it would be amazing, Angela, if we could meet with you and your team. We have a draft timeline that we've put together of, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a couple dozen, 64 events or so commemorative kind of topics that we have kind of focused on as a group. But we also have the list of our committee and all of us and our institutions. This is just such an incredibly robust group of people. It'd be great to sit down with or digitally meet with you down the road with your team to go over kind of what we as a commission have to offer between what we want to kind of focus on in the commemoration kind of narrative, but also what our organizations represent, and see where the pieces of the puzzle that you all haven't kind of filled yet, where we can really focus on those things, because we don't need to start over by any means. And it sounds like between what you all are already doing and what MHS is doing and other folks, that there's so much of this is already done. But I think that our organizations collectively represent a pretty broad thing that maybe there's some gaps that we can help fill, but I think we really want to focus on what those gaps are. But that's going to take a conversation with you all to find out what those are and where they are. And then that will give us at least a really targeted focus for where we can help support the development those connections for curricula. So again, we're not going to write curricula probably, but there's plenty of folks here that will be able to make those connections. So I would love if we can make this a potential next meeting topic. I don't know if that has to happen during a time that we don't normally meet, given the timeline, or even if we can do that. But just would love that to happen in the next year, in the early next year. And related to Hennessy, do you know if there's an approximate timeline for when we lose some of the restrictions on meeting and discussions and time and like how we do these meetings? So I think that would kind of increase our flexibility a little bit too.
Yeah, so I can say that the ordinance that we edited and voted on and everything is going up. It's supposed to go up to city council for a vote in January. So potentially it'll be done before our next commemoration commission meeting, January 23rd. Potentially it may happen after. But I think that if once that does go through, it will change how we are able to interact. Like we will be able to email each other. And that will be very nice. You know, and I think that would allow us to do more of what I think they envisioned the subcommittee doing, which is being able to plan, being able to do outreach, being able to, you know, see programs, talk to programs, vet them, you know, recommend them to funding. Whereas, you know, our current structure doesn't really allow for us to do much of this work.
I think it'd be really helpful for us as a subcommittee too, to identify what's been done, just so that other people know what's been done. Not even just as like a clearinghouse situation, but literally just putting it in the report that you write that says like, here's what BPS has done to date. Because I think some of the curricula, some of the legislation that we are working under was done with some assumptions made about what hasn't been done. And I feel like this is part of the process of letting ourselves, but also the greater Boston community know that this is not something that's been missing. It's just been underseen and under cobbled together or something like that. But I think that would be really nice to be able to report back overall to the public. And thank you so much, Dr. Headley Mitchell. I really look forward to having a further conversation with you and your team, because this is really exciting. And I'm so glad to hear of an opportunity to work more with you all. I think many of us in this subcommittee are also excited to potentially work with you in our own organization. So these connections, I think, are really going to be great.
Yes, excited to work with you all.
Do we have other comments, other questions? I think we know potential topics. We can reach out to people. We can reach out to you, Angela, before this, you know, after this meeting's over, and we can maybe set something up for, if not December, then it's December. If not January, then February, hopefully. And we can do that. And we can go from there. But do you guys have anything else?
I just wanted to, can we share the timeline with Kate and Pollux? I feel like that would be helpful for them to see, because it's way more than just a revolution. It would also be good for you all to have a list of what we are looking at, because if you are seeing holes in what the MHS has, we could also potentially help at least come up with some things. So I'm going to put that into the chat. And I've had a bad track record for Google Docs being visible on my end, so please let me know if they're not. You should have seen it during the time, Hennessy, when you weren't here. It was fun.
Well, it says it's anybody
Okay.
with the link can see
That's
it.
great.
So if you want, I can share it on the screen as well, so that we can all just take a look at it.
It's pretty long, so if you all
Yeah,
need
it is.
a minute to kind of look it over, just to kind of see the different topics, it's pretty inclusive and exhaustive. There's definitely missing pieces on this as well, but yeah.
We definitely do have we have the known gap section. I added one thing, but we have more to add to this, and that's fine, understandable. But another thing about that is that the Events, Exhibits, and Trails Subcommittee is hoping to get this, not that they don't already have it or haven't already seen it. But they want to make sure that you guys are feeling strong, feeling, good enough about this timeline, to share it with them so they can start, doing that outreach and doing that building around this timeline, even as we add to it.
I think we just need more professional eyes on it, frankly, just to find the gaps.
Mhm. You guys want, we can. Yes. We can talk a little bit more about the Leventhal Map Center project. If you guys want, I can share the screen for what I started working on. It's really quick. Let's see. Okay. So if you guys can see, it says history house sheet, right? Make sure I'm not sharing anything. So it's very, very simple. I just want, so I put a couple ones that we know. They just want the name, the street, the city, zip code. They want hours, contacts. This is like a Wikipedia page image that I made into a separate link, so it'll just show the image. And then a brief description with the latitude and the longitude. And so we did do this, and they gave me some examples of some maps that it would look like. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll send you guys those maps so we can take a look at them. Those maps are really cool. They have one that it's about the historic synagogue in Boston. One is for Black art and sculptures. And another one was pretty complicated. It was like Little Syria. And it had like overlays of the neighborhood, like from certain decades. So it was really cool. You could see like the development of Little Syria historically and into the present. So I'll stop sharing. This is very simple. It's in our shared folder already, but I'll send it out via email so you guys can access it. So we can start filling this out. And where is it? Okay. Yeah, so that's, sorry.
I was gonna say, just to clarify, we're allowed to fill out those sheets. We're not allowed to discuss them. So we can do this on our free time that we don't have to work on. But just wanted to make sure that that's clear. We don't have to do it in session, but for the folks that missed last week when we made that clarification, or last time when we made that clarification as well.
So it will be okay. We're working on it individually, just filling it out. I think one thing we will want to talk about though is what we put in the description. Because we'll want to be intentional in that description to say this house has this particular history, it has this education program, it has potential connections to X, Y, and Z, and whether they have the potential to come to the school, because I know we talked about accessibility and wanting something that like had virtual options. I know, and I'm thinking about the Malcolm X Little Collins house. Right now it has a virtual tour, which is pretty cool. So we want to make sure that I can write the descriptions, but I want to make sure that we discuss what you all think is important to have in these descriptions.
I think we should all freely take a stab at writing something there, especially for the ones that we're more familiar with. But yeah, we'll need to make sure we're not missing pieces of that as well, because Shirley Eustace House, for just a small example, has many layers of topics that could be discussed.
Yes, so I just sent you guys the Massachusetts synagogues and Black artists. So I'll share it again, screen one. Okay, amazing. So this is the Black artists and public sculptures, and we're taking bits and pieces of both. So if you click on one, it'll have a picture and it'll have a description, and so it'll look something like this, which I think is great. That way you can show it, you can it's user friendly. You can show it to your students, you can, other people can use it. And then this one is the Massachusetts Synagogues, a historical map. And this one is, oops, this one is pretty cool because you can search your town. So Boston. And then you'll be able to see, oops, I don't, it's zooming in so bad. And then you'll be able to click on it and it has something similar like address, year founded, et cetera, et cetera. So we're hoping to make it so that it's a little bit of a combination of these things. And instead of, town, it'll be neighborhood. Or you'll be able to search by your school, like I said. And then it'll look a little bit like this and like the other one that I can't access anymore for some reason. Yes, there it is. And like this one with the picture and the description. Oops. Here. Stop sharing. So if we want, we could take a stab at it for one of the houses that I've put here. Not necessarily writing out the whole description, but what you guys think we might want to target for description. So want to put the make sure we have a little bit of the history, a little bit of about the program. So it's like this house is important because blah blah blah, and it is currently stewarded by this group, this organization. They have this type of education program, and we can list some particulars about what they offer. Does that sound like that makes sense for the description? Is there anything that you guys think should be added to that?
Let me just pipe in for a second, Hennessy. I think just somebody doing a prototypical one might help us. One or two of them maybe might help, maybe one for, well, this is houses, but the point is some prototypical one that we can critique and talk about just to make sure that it becomes the model for everything else, and then maybe dividing up the work a little bit.
Okay. Well, so what I think I could do is, because this was given to me by the 11th Hour Map Center, so they said if you fill it out, we can map some of it, and then it should remain pretty simple to continue, building it. We just keep adding and doing this.
Yeah.
If it gets more complicated, then they'll do more for it. But if that's the case, then I can just do that description, send it to them, and say, hey, would you be able to, build it out with the few that you have, so that we can, so the subcommittee and the commission can take a look at it, and that way we have something to critique.
Perhaps, and again, I don't know the parameters of that program, but I think maybe even just the text would be enough to define what the typical scope is for each of the properties.
Okay.
If I'm not, anyway, something to think about. But to be clear, this is strictly for historic house museums, ones that are accessible, or other things.
I mean, it includes, it will include other things.
Okay.
We wanted it to, be, so if you are, for example, think of public school, I went to the Hennigan. So if you're a teacher at the Hennigan, you look up the Hennigan and you see your local library, you see your local museum, and you see a historic house. If we're in the proximity of so our hope was that it allows teachers, removes the barrier of having to do the research and presents it in a way that's manageable, and also allows teachers to plan local field trips, and allows students to get in touch with their local history. So that was the goal, and that was the concept behind it.
I think it could be a really valuable tool and updatable always, which is the best part.
Exactly.
Yeah, do you know what that would look like for updating? Would we have to reach out to the Leventhal, or is it more like it feeds automatically from a spreadsheet?
So, good question. It's still automatically a spreadsheet, whether it's the Leventhal or us, but I have to reach out to the people who do GIS here in Boston, because the map center wants to know if Boston wants to have any ownership over it, because if that's the case, then they'll rework it so that it is compatible with both systems. But if it's okay with City of Boston for it to live with BPL, then they will just have it in the program that they use, and that is just you update the spreadsheet. Unless we need it to be more complicated, which as of right now, it's pretty simple. So you just feed it into the spreadsheet and it updates on the map.
That'd be really great to have it be so automatic of a process.
But yeah, so what I'm gonna do now is I'll reach back out to the 11th on Map Center, so we can continue working through that. And I'll reshare the history house sheet just so that everybody has it with potential description options. And I actually have GIS, so I could take a little picture and map it and so and then we can critique that for the next meeting. And then I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yes, I will reach out to BPS, to Angela, and I'll include you guys, the co-chairs in it, and Kathy now. And we will try to maybe set something up for next month's meeting, if not then for February. And yes, and then I feel like I'm forgetting something. But I think that's what we'll do, and then it'll be a great way to continue, working with the MHS team. It was great. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was great to have you guys present everything. And it'll be great, to continue working with you all, to see how we can continue to support you all and to support yes, and other organizations. Connect you guys.
Thank you so much for having us. And thank you, Dr. Headley Mitchell. It was wonderful to hear from you, and just working with your team has been so wonderful lately. You've got such, John is wonderful, everybody else. Sorry, I'm thinking of other adjectives and I can't because I have not had enough coffee today. But yeah, I'm just so glad you were here. I feel like that was what was really great to hear what those needs would be and who the right people are to talk to about them.
Then the final thing came to me. I remember. The final thing is that I'm gonna make sure that the Events Exhibits and Trails subcommittee has the timeline document so that we can start talking about it and see how they envision adopting and enacting the timeline that I gave them. So I'll open it for final comments, but I think if not, we can end a little early. There are no final comments. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
You guys.
Thank you, Hennessy.
Thank you, Hennessy. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Dr. Headley Mitchell.
Thanks to Kate and Paula.
Be well, everyone.
Bye.